I'm going to continue our conversation now with Mark Skoda, founder and chairman of the Memphis Tea Party, also Hilary Shelton, director of the NAACP's Washington Bureau. Again, talking about the delegates at the NAACP convention approving a resolution that asked the leaders of the Tea Party movement to repudiate some of the racist elements, quote unquote, of the Tea Party. Mark, let me let you jump back in here on some of the things that Hilary was talking about before the break, which are have leaders like yourself not done enough to repudiate some of those incidents we have seen around the country when it comes to maybe at a Tea Party rally or the signs that have the N-word, quite frankly, on them we've seen, spitting in the face of a black congressman, things like that. Have guys like yourself not done enough?
Well, let me say this. You know, some of the allegations relate to the Washington incident. You know, we formed the National Tea Party Federation, which is a group of about 80-plus Tea Party leaders around the country, plus affiliates. We actually sent a letter to the Congressional Black Caucus offering our videos, asking for theirs, so that we could indeed identify who was at fault in the altercations that were alleged. We received no feedback. We asked for help. We want to do that. The Tea Party leadership is a very reasonable group of people. And indeed, I would suggest to you that while there are fringe elements in all movements, that the folks that are leading these major organizations who are making a difference by getting the vote out, getting people elected, clearly have stated unequivocally that there is no room for this kind of derogatory speech. Indeed, no room for racism. You know, in my own case, I recruited a woman, Charlotte Bergman, who's an African-American conservative running for District 9 against Steve Cohen. I worked personally on Angela McGlowan, another African-American woman in District 1 in Mississippi. I'm heavily involved with the Brinkley Heights Urban Academy. You know, in Memphis, Tennessee, we have 60% African-American population in the city. It is untenable that I, as leader, would disenfranchise a relationship with the major part of my city, and indeed work heavily with a black church, which I founded 7 years ago with the pastor Roscoe Perry, and indeed with Brinkley Heights raised $500,000 to help underprivileged children in, frankly, crack-infested neighborhoods. We are working very hard as conservatives to ensure that we have smaller government, that we use our own resources, and that we create different ideas. Well, I regret and have great respect, though, for the NAACP, but I regret that they've decided to take this action, frankly, unnecessarily so.
Well, Hilary, you named earlier some of the groups that are a part of or affiliated with the Tea Party movement. I mean, can you tell me right now what would be satisfactory? What are the names of the people, the leadership you talk about of the movement? Who do you want to come out in front of a microphone and say, we reject all of these racist elements and these racist incidents that have taken place, and possibly get you to a point where you would withdraw that resolution?
Well, it would be enough to have those within the Tea Party movement actually recognize that some of those involved in the fringe element, as mentioned before, are carryovers from very extremist organizations like the Council of Conservative Citizens and other groups that I don't believe carry the same concerns as the person I'm speaking to on the other end. That is, what he's saying is very reasonable. Grassroots mass movement organizations often have fringes that try to invade what they're trying to do in a very reasonable and systematic and even democratic way. It makes very good sense to raise issues and concerns that may be different from others. Conservative ideas, conservative issues around taxation, around spending, around those kind of concerns, that makes good sense. It's not that agenda that we're worried about. It's the signs we're seeing being carried. It's the epithets being utilized. It's the very troubling and inflammatory and racially discriminatory language being used.
But again, Hilary, I'm asking specifically, what is satisfactory? Because you're sitting next to you here on live TV with one guy who is doing exactly what you're asking a leader to do, which is to repudiate all those fringe elements. So what exactly do you want them to do that would be satisfactory?
Whenever it comes up, and it will come up again, as you mentioned, there are those that are going to try to infiltrate everything they're doing to bring an illegitimate agenda to the table, not just the agenda, but an illegitimate manner of handling these concerns. We've seen it happen in the past. We're fearful that it will happen again. And as our resolution calls for, they have to be prepared every step along the way to repudiate these extremely problematic factions, messaging, and signs that we see happening across the board. They have to make sure that we don't have those that show up. We have to be concerned with those issues, usually from the left side. Those people that would bring signs denigrating some member of Congress or whatever the case might be, they may be extreme right wing. We shut that down right away, and it is our hope that you'll see the importance of doing exactly the same thing. I believe that he does, but I hope the other 5 faction leaders, as well as all those local organizations, will follow suit and do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Mark.
I was hoping one thing I would ask the NAACP to do, and it revolves around the new Black Panther Party. I mean, Malik Shazab has suggested that crackers and children of police be murdered. I would hope that he is as energetic in rejecting such a horrific fringe, in fact, bordering on hate speech. And I would hope that you would do that also beyond singling out the Tea Party. I think,
we absolutely do.
The hysterical elements here, the hysterical elements on both sides need to be tamped down. There is no room to relive the 60s. We must continue to move forward. And I am grateful that you've given us this forum to have a reasonable dialogue.
And I strongly agree with you about those very inflammatory statements made by members of the new Black Panther Party. There's no place for that kind of vitriolic language in a civilized democratic society. It has to stop. We have to address the real issues before us and stop digressing into the fringes that are unnecessary. We strongly agree with it.
Mark, let me ask you, how damaging is something like this? Now, and I want to talk about this resolution, and I say how damaging is it when you have such a revered organization as the NAACP, a revered civil rights organization that has put something on paper having to do with the Tea Party movement. That's, I mean, no matter what, people are going to listen to the NAACP. What people aren't getting is maybe what you just referenced, a calm conversation like we're having. What you're seeing in a lot of coverage is, again, 2 sides yelling back and forth at each other, unfortunately. So how much does it hurt just the Tea Party movement itself, which, quite frankly, has been known as a conservative and sometimes, yes, even racist movement in some of the coverage? How much does it hurt to have a group like the NAACP come out and do something like this when you know most people aren't going to see this reasoned conversation?
Well, I think regrettably, I think at the end of the day, it begins to marginalize some of the good work the NAACP does. I think people who are part of this movement know who they are, know where their heart is. And I think, if nothing else, and certainly as I've talked to some of my members and received emails, there is a great energy afoot to repudiate, first of all, this position, and secondly, to get the vote out and change the makeup of Congress. We're focused on the 2010 elections. And again, I have great respect for the NAACP. I live in a city where where we had Martin Luther King assassinated, and we live with that every single day. And I recognize the absolute rawness of this issue on the psyche of African Americans. And so there is no place for this. And regrettably, I think we would try to find more common ground together than to find divisive language in such a resolution. So I frankly don't believe this will have a major impact on the Tea Party movement. In fact, I would suggest that it may, in fact, animate further behavior to get the vote out, show up at the polls, and to be more active.
Ed, what about the effect on the NAACP, Hilary? I guess you could see a couple of different ways. Some people saying this is exactly what the NAACP should be doing, keeping people in check. On the other hand, some people might agree with Mark here in that, you know, it takes away from some of the other good work that the NAACP is doing.
Well, it is our hope that people see this as exactly what it is. That as we've seen problems on the horizon, as much as we've seen very well-disciplined members of the Tea Party, as the person I'm talking to right now, raising the issues in a very relaxed kind of way, a very respectful way, we still have challenges. People responded to what they've seen happening. They responded to what they've seen with the very racist type signage, with the very racist and inflammatory language being utilized. And very well, what we've equipped them with in that resolution are tools to assess what's going on. We made sure that we didn't paint the entire Tea Party with one broad brush, but raised the issues of those elements within. And it's our hope, the reason in raising these issues, that we will begin to see a greater set of discipline being utilized by the Tea Party to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. I'm hearing that kind of commitment over from our other person from the Tea Party in Memphis, and it is our hope we can see that in all of the other factions of the Tea Party as well. And my guess is, as the future moves on, we will probably find some issues, I hope, in the future we can agree on and work together to implement.
Finish it up for me, Mark. I know you want to get in there. Just a couple seconds.
If I may just say, Hilary, I would offer that I would be happy to broker a meeting with a number of our leaders to meet with the NAACP. So far, we've been talking at each other and not speaking with each other, and I would encourage us to do that if you so see it as helpful. I think we need to have a good open dialogue, and I would encourage you to accept an invitation to have me bring a number of leaders from around the country to meet with the NAACP and to discuss this in very good detail.
We will look forward to making that meeting happen. It sounds like just the kind of thing that needs to come out of a resolution like this passing.
All right, got you both guys on the record, and I got both of your phone numbers as